I read it. That's why I was asking if there was an ordinance now.
No, there's nothing now. We have nothing to bind us to any.
So I have no right to go over to my neighbor
How as big as you are.
and complain with him. Yeah, them pit bulls are bigger and meaner.
Little living
But
here.
I have no right to go over to his place now and put in a complaint to him and
Not
tell
yet.
him to come over and clean that mess up.
Not yet.
Not yet, but it's getting close.
Is there a county thing that would come in?
There's no enforcement. They're not going to come out here to enforce it.
The simple operation we have now, and I've said this before, we have a lady by the name of Jackie Peck that actually retrieves animals that are like puppies or dropped off animals, or and most of that would constitute your nuisance animals, and she picks them up and the city gives her X number of dollars, I don't know, there's a certain rate, and then she houses the animal and adopts him out. And it's about the most humane thing that I've ever seen, and it's working good. But just like this gentleman here said, we've got to start putting the ordinances into effect that will protect us in your case, the near future, and in the future. And what we're doing tonight is we want the citizens' input to look at this. We don't want to make a decision that's just outrageous if there's enough people that say, well, we don't like this part, like Ray bringing up the fireworks and coming into your home. That's a no-no. I can tell you that right now. I've already, that's got to be axed. There's no right for anybody to come in your house with fireworks. My grandkids shoot fireworks after the first year, and if it's illegal, I didn't know it.
Now, that's the last one I had. Mr. Riley, thank you, sir. And if you ever feel like you need to do something just for spare time, you make a great enforcement officer.
Yeah. And we're looking for one.
Careful what you volunteer
Keep
for.
your attitude around.
Be careful what you say.
Dwight, we kind of glossed you over a little bit. If you wish to make any further comments from your efforts there, we're willing to listen.
Actually, I just have a question.
Yes, sir.
First time I've been to one of these here. Since Broadway's been into the city, I know that's still kind of holding. But my question
No,
is...
they're actually a part of our...
It is actually already done?
Yes, sir, it is. Yes,
okay. Is there any plans in the future, I'm a permanent resident here, 7.5 years right now, I think.
Yes, sir.
Of doing sewer systems, or any of this is going to happen in my lifetime?
That was a touchy subject several years ago. Let me just say this.
Or any improvements in general?
The city's financial capabilities are going to be a dictate as to what we can and cannot do. And if you're aware of some of the activity that's going on what actually promotes this city is our sales tax revenue that we have from the 155 corridor. That alone is pretty much all we have to rely upon. We got some small amount coming in from the motel sales tax or occupancy tax that we get. But for the most part, the city thrives on just that limited resource base. That is pretty well just barely keeping up, or a little bit extra each month to pay our employees and et cetera that we have. Of course, there's some ticketing issues, but that's not something that's supposed to be created for a vehicle of income.
Right.
So with that said, it's going to be basically the capability of the city to finance something like that is going to be very strained. And the reliability of having something go wet that would take our income source is probably a very real threat. We're seeing some of it happening already. So with that said, no, sir, we don't have anything planned in the near future.
I mean, I just was curious about it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
As far as your sewer system, not likely.
Okay.
And I mean, because that word was mentioned once before and everything broke loose, so.
Well, I didn't know if maybe through the state that they would fund such a thing and then just start charging taxes accordingly to, to upgrade everything.
Don't say
Say that word.
No.
That T word.
It's a T-word. It's
Oh.
Texas. Say Texas. Don't say...
Well, I came from the big city. I said some
That's
normal thing.
I started a group.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Okay. Dwight, you did good.
Alright.
Close it. You did good. Anybody else that I don't want to close it off right this time. That was just 7 people. Is there anyone? Is there an 8th person like to stand up? Mr. Riley, you did a great job. Any other person? Yes, ma'am. Please.
My name is Jennifer. I'm granddaughter to Jack and Betty Savage.
Yes, ma'am.
And I would like to speak tonight a little bit on behalf of my grandfather. He is a farmer, and he does a lot of gardening. He does composting. You know, he has a lot of pots and pans and things that he works with, and there are times where things can accumulate water and create an issue with stagnant water and things of that nature. While we work to clear that stuff, it's not often feasible that we can capture everything. He is 80-some years old.
I'm familiar who he is, yes ma'am.
So I would like to just make mention of looking at your farmers and seeing what they're going to need in efforts of this particular set of regulations that you're putting together. So composting is very important to a farmer.
Oh, absolutely.
And putting together, even water, putting together water and making systems, irrigation systems and things like that are very important to a farmer too. So if we could take that into account. And something else I saw was you were saying something about vegetation that hosts disease and insects that may reasonably expect to injure except ladybugs and pest control. I don't know if you guys have ever farmed, but squash bugs and potato bugs and things like that, spider mites can often be impossible to manage. So if we could, I'd like to get that stricken because you do the best you can with your insects. And
What number are you?
I'm looking at the health, public nuisances under health and sanitation.
Is there a number by that?
I believe it is 6B, vegetation net. There's a few things I know that maybe if we could just look through that and just see what we might be able to adjust to make that more farmer friendly. I really appreciate that.
Under which one?
6B.
It's gonna be, under 4215, public nuisances. 4215, 6B, harbors or host disease or insects that may reasonably be expected to injure other forms of life.
It does say insects such as, so,
Except insects such as those
yeah,
commonly called.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
So that would,
there's an exception.
yeah, there's an exception. And one part of your question, ma'am, were you concerned about articles like pots and so forth in the yard? Well, let me just say this. I know that there's cities like Shreveport, the only thing that can be left in the front yard of a residence is children's play swings, toys, little cars, whatever, children's toys. And that just really disturbed me that you couldn't really have anything else in the yard. And they actually had an officer come out and issue citation on that. In here, and I made a point of it,
You must be missing that page.
from my understanding of the way this ordinance reads, if your grandfather wants to keep his gardening supplies and anything of that nature in the yard, as long as it is concealed behind a fence, it's legal. You see what I'm saying? In other words, if he wants to have a red wagon out there with flowers growing out of it, I don't think anybody's going to say anything about that. And if he has other articles that is necessary for his hobby, I don't think that really anybody's going to ride herd on that as an offense. Now, if it's a collection of stuff that looks like he's dumped the garbage truck out there, I would hope that, the fence would be the solution to hide that. You see what I'm saying?
I do understand that. I also understand that my grandmother and grandfather live on their Social Security payments, and it's not feasible for them to build a fence around the amount of property they have. You're looking at a very hefty cost, and I don't.
I wouldn't necessarily say it have to be around the property, it could be in the vicinity of the garden.
I don't know if you've seen their property. They've got a lot of property, and they work very, very hard, and you just do as much as you can with as much energy that you have, and everything else, gets stuff by the wayside. You just do what you can, and I can tell you a fence is a very, very expensive cost.
Absolutely. We'll address that during the council. This is what we're using, your inputs, for us to demonstrate the steep change through a lot of argumentation, I'm sure. But anyway, so that we can finalize this document. So we are taking into consideration what you just said. You're very specific. Thank you very much. Anybody else before I go to the council? Okay, we're through with the input from the city, and of course, many of you did make very good comments, and were very specific, and I appreciate it. A lot of it was actually redundant to what we were already thinking about. Steve, you have your flash drive package you put together on this. what I want to do now as the body here is to go over what we've just heard and any other inputs that we may have. And guys, let's try to keep brevity in the back of our minds on this. I like to be as specific as possible and not trail off into episodes of our life history to understand what it is, the point you're making. But with that said, let's go ahead and start addressing some of these issues and see what Steve. Now, Steve, you're comfortable where you are. You're all powered up and everything. Other members of your board here, Ron was a member, Mr. Rutledge was a member, Lee's here. Lee, where are you? You're hiding? There you are. Lee, you're here. Is there anybody else in your board or your committee that was here tonight?
Bruce,
Bruce, he's not
Harvard's
here.
unavailable, and Donna Bradley.
And so that's your only 2 absentees? Guys, the reason why I pointed y'all out to the other members of the community that's here tonight, I want, if you don't mind standing up, these people are part of your group that volunteered their time to help us construct this document. And so the impact of this document is on them and us. We're all members of the city. So I don't want a dictatorial issue be developed from what we're trying to achieve here. But these fellows here took some time out and did us a big favor here as city members of this city. We're not professionals in what we do here. So while we're addressing these things, you same gentlemen I just had stand up, speak out. If you have a thought process that y'all experienced during the meetings that you feel like Steve's not offering to us as a board or as a council, then stand up and be noted for it. And we want to hear from you as we develop this next segment. So with that said, Lee, if you want me to, I'll just start off with various members of this council. Then we'll have a general discussion amongst ourselves. And Steve, we're going to try to make this as concise as possible so that you're not trying to figure out what language we're speaking in. So, and we'll try to make these changes if we can reason through, okay? Lee, do you want to start off by stating anything that I heard that was on your list of things that you didn't appreciate of being here or wanted added to or whatever?
I guess I didn't understand too well the wording on this. We're showing the 4002, number 10, 2, restraints. Is the scaring of an animal by leash or lead.
Let me get to that point. 4002.
Yeah,
Can we back up just a little bit? Because I've got a couple of things here. If we can go through and
page by page.
clear
Yeah,
page by
that's
page.
we want to go.
Okay, you just want to go down the
This way.
pages, just to individualize?
Yeah, let's not skip around. Just
Okay,
kind of roll with it.
okay.
I talked to the police chief, and under animal control officer, he would like to change the chief of police to read specifically designated by the city council, the T-Close certified employee of Coffee City Police Department. This way, any of his employees can act as the animal control officer.
What was the wording of that?
T-Close certified employee of Coffee City Police Department, CCPD, shall be the animal control officer. And that's up to you guys now.
What, is that necessary? Because like you say, if the sheriff needs to sell the property at a tax sale, it's never the sheriff. You never see the sheriff.
Well, then it would be the police department. But this way.
I always thought that meant that he was the representative of the police department and any of his officers are there to.
Well, he just gave clarification.
But yeah, this clarifies that it's got to be T-Close.
Well,
It's
yeah,
got
let's
to
go
be
ahead.
T-Close certified to carry a firearm.
Now, we're not going to vote on each
It would be,
individual
John,
thing.
that would be good if we actually ended up with an animal control officer, then he could be designated to that spot instead of the police department, right? Because the police department.
Oh, but that can be changed. Right now, since you don't have one, you need to
We're
be
just,
available.
we're going with what we have
Yeah.
now.
Okay, number 7 on the same page, is
Yeah,
that
but I mean,
large?
it's
All right,
automatic.
wait, number 7.
Number 7 on the same page, is that large? He wanted it removed. And
Yes.
there are a few other places in the regulations that at large would be taken out. And the reason for that is, this way there's not going to be a reason for anybody that isn't being harmed by the animal through a nuisance or an attack to call in and say there's a dog running loose. Even though you know who the dog might be, if the dog is not on your property or doing harm, if the dog's at large but it's not causing an issue, then it shouldn't be just a random act that can be
taken advantage of, yes.
Well, or done not in the correct manner. If the dog's not a nuisance, he felt it would be best if it doesn't.
This gentleman here brought up the question about the dog defecating on his property. What about that? Is that,
Well,
that would be going to nuisance, right?
Yeah, that would be under nuisance because he's not going on his own property, he's going on someone else.
Okay.
And also, since Mr. Bach brought that up, he was also saying that for pit bulls, they have a tendency to run in pack and they become more aggressive as they run together.
Yeah.
Any dog will, but these in particular.
Y'all wanna go to the next page?
Yeah.
Second page.
And that's the one, Lee, I think you were asking
I
about
guess
the
I'm not,
tethering
I guess I'm not understanding.
or restraint.
What is that actually?
Number 3.
It's just explaining what restraint is.
Okay, all right.
It doesn't have anything about it. And the first part here, even though it's, people are saying 21 pages, some of it you have to define what you mean by restraint.
Only 12 pages now.
Is the leash law relevant in here, or are you just explaining
In certain
what it is?
places it is.
Okay.
If the dog is out in a public place, let's say you're gonna have a motorcycle show, and a guy brings his dog, you need to make sure that the dog is on a leash, no matter what kind of dog it is, not to harm anybody else.
I saw
That's
some, I can't
reasonable.
remember what page it is, was this 4003, something about the rabies shot every 3 years. I understand rabies shot is once a year.
That's what they, if you go to a groomer, they'll only accept once a year. So I don't know what this 3-year bid is.
Whenever we-
Rabies
I don't
shots
see
are
the 3
good.
years in here.
Well, yeah, it's in there, I read it.
Yeah, it's
But,
in there.
Let's get to that page.
Rabies shots are good for that, but most people will not accept that animal for contact for
We are,
less than a
we
year.
are.
Okay.
So when we get to
But when
that,
we
We'll get to that
okay,
page.
fine.
Yeah, okay, page 3. Moving right along. Mayor,
Now
I
that-
see you.
okay, wait a minute, who's the city treasury? 40.21, collection fees. 40.21.
City treasurer, we can change that to city secretary.
That works.
With city fees, okay. So we got these, actually, I found out that these Pflugerville ordinances came from Berryville. That's where they started.
Appreciate y'all volunteering my employee, thank you.
Do we change it to animal control officers and this,
T-code
certified employee?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Where you at?
40.20 B.
Now, who is that?
He was just making the language rhyme throughout the document. Just scratch
How
that
do you
out.
spell that?
Next page.
Actually, excuse me, you would not need to change that animal control officer because you described him back in the animal control officers under definitions. That could say just the way it is without.
That's right.
40.22, hearing, we're on that page. Anybody have any?
I know we had, this one takes about commercial animal stuff.
Well, that's after that.
On this particular thing here, if this being brought before the judge, city judge, for a hearing on animals, are we there yet?
Yes.
That's the page we're on.
Okay, and Judge, you indicated that that person did not have to just go for a bench decision, that they could in fact call a jury trial for that that complaint, right?
My opinion that you can never deny a person a jury trial.
Okay, so we have to supply a jury trial if that person requests.
But
Okay,
that's with anything.
Yes.
well, it wasn't made clear.
Okay.
But if they lose.
Unless it's a vicious animal, now, if they file on for a vicious animal,
He wants clarification on that, Judge, who pays the cost of that?
If the
First
person
jury.
loses,
if the person loses, there's a $5 jury fee. Now, if a person does not appear that requests a jury trial, then we can charge up to $200 for calling a jury.
they're only responsible for reimbursement for the juror's expense, is that what you said
$5 total.
Just $5. If they lose their case,
$5
What's
plus
the
the
cost-
fine.
What's the cost to the city for that day?
For 6 jurors to serve at $60, but you don't normally call at least,
It's one of the few deals
But he's got to
in the
pay his
world.
fine as well. Okay, are we finished on this page.
No, under commercial animal establishments, I think this was a point made up, someone in the audience said, we really do not have commercial animal establishments
We're
within
still
our
on,
city.
we're still on the same page?
Yes.
Oh, I see,
And
okay.
someone made a comment one time, if you wait till you have a problem, then you have to.
Go back and
it's
make a
whole
law.
other, you know, you have to go through the whole process, it takes, well, it's taking us what, 4 months
4
now to
months.
get back to this?
Well, I just feel like, who made the
Okay,
statement
let
that
me
we
just
will
say
not
this.
have, we will probably never have a pound?
I was the one that
No.
was talking to you about this. First of all, I talked to Mr. Ellison the other day, and I said, we don't have any zoning whatsoever for a commercial animal establishment, whether it be a pound or a puppy mill or whatever else. And he said that, that we will in the future have a zoning. But for the time being, I suggested that until zoning is in place, the city council may approve a presentable location for a dog containment facility or any other business which would account for a possible nuisance, be it barking dogs, loud noise, whatever. In other words, since we don't have zoning, and say for instance, if somebody wanted to start an I-4 plant in a house, we have no zoning. You could not refuse it. And until that's in place, I think that a person that would apply for any kind of a business application, that the city council should be able to approve that until zoning is in place. I don't know if that's legal.
Is that legal, Steve, or do you know?
I'm not a lawyer.
But see, that would give us
Don't
the
get me in
authority.
trouble with Mike.
No, see, that would give us the authority, like if somebody wanted to put in
Well, I
a
understand.
puppy mill next to you and you heard barking dogs, and the only provision I see in here is a 100 feet. That's nothing. That's across the yard.
But could we clarify this to say anyone who raises animals for the sole purpose of selling them, or for sole purpose, some kind of wording of that nature?
What?
Because to me, your next door neighbor could raise animals, sell, can't or whatever.
That's what a commercial animal establishment is.
What we
So I don't
do,
see why we want to leave it out there.
Well, I think that, well, see, we have no zoning for it, and we only have a 100-foot restriction.
It doesn't matter if you have zoning or not, if you have
Language.
ordinance, if you have ordinance in effect, well, you have zoning
Oh, you mean to forbid it completely?
to, well, no, just.
To regulate it.
To regulate it.
Well, how are you gonna regulate it if you haven't got it written in the ordinance? This would
No,
give
you
the city council
you
the authority.
regulate the,
You regulate it to the city council, because if they
I
request
see
a
my
permit,
point.
then the city council could make the determination, because we could send the animal control officer out, and he'd say, no, man, there's an apartment next door, or there's some houses next door, we can't have a puppy mill there. But since we have no zoning,
Use that in lieu of zoning, to
Yes,
use the authority
until
of
the
the
zoning is
city
in
council
place.
to sanction whether or not to have a puppy mill.
well,
That's what he's trying to get.
that's why if it requires a permit, you can set the requirements to obtain the permit. If you don't have this in there, you can't do anything about it at
oh,
all.
I agree with the permit, I'm just saying that what if a person applies next to your house for a commercial puppy mill, or if someone wanted to, say your neighbor became the new dog pound,
Let me say,
then he could put it in next door and you would have no
Well,
teeth
I
to.
don't know.
this is
I
not an
don't
automatic
exactly
permit
understand
situation.
No.
We still have the authority whether or not
To
to
regulate
grant.
how much land they have
Permit.
per animal.
So we just don't, we
It's
don't
So
so
that
grant.
should,
they need
what
a
I'm saying
permit.
is, Steve, that should be the determination of the city council. And anybody that's level-headed would not allow a puppy mill or an animal control facility to be placed next to somebody's house.
Well, I understand that.
So I think that needs to be, until zoning is in place, I think that the city council needs to regulate where that place could be put, because we're
Or
requiring
granting
a
a
permit.
permit,
Yeah,
is what
we're
he's saying.
granting a permit.
That's what I'm saying, that's why it says permit required.
Right.
So I don't know.
But what if
I
somebody
don't know
on the
what
council, what if 3 people on the council was related to this person and they decided that it was okay
Then
to
you
put it
have to
next
have
to
an
a house?
election.
Well, you know what I'm talking about,
Yes,
no?
I understand what you're saying.
You
I'm
have to
just saying that
establish
would be a
what the
way,
permit will allow.
that would just
How
be a
much land
way,
space,
since we
things like
do
that.
not have zoning.
Are you one person, that person just want to add in as approved?
I want the permit to be approved by the city council.
With that first line, is that
Okay.
correct?
By the city council.
Just-
That
just
would
language that in there,
forego
Steve.
any zoning.
Operate a commercial animal establishment within corporate limits of the city must be approved in advance of issuance. Must be approved
Yeah,
in
in
advance
lieu
by
of
the city
zoning,
council.
because we don't have zoning.
Okay, that's.
I'm sorry, Mike, I guess I didn't understand what.
I didn't either.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, we put that out.
Must be
Anything
approved
else
by
on
the
that
city
page?
council.
So you gonna leave the commercial establishment thing?
Yes, but the permit has to be met the threshold of the city council approval.
I would expect it to be on 40 acres somewhere.
But we've got the council approval situation in language.
That's what I want.
Y'all ready to go to the next page?
Yes.
We'll be here till tomorrow. You ready? Minimum standards.
There you are, right there. Boom. 100 feet.
We'll change it to 500 feet.
No, we don't have to because the council has control until zoning is in place.
Well, then,
And a B zoning is not gonna have a house next
since
door.
this is already in here, you might want to at least change the 100 feet to something right now that's acceptable until you get that in place, and then you can revise it.
I'd say 500, because
Let's
you
put
don't need
500
it
right
in the
now.
neighborhood.
How come you can't just put nothing, and when the city council says where it needs to be? It don't have to be 500 or 100, it has to be where the city council lets it be.
Exactly.
Right?
That's what I was saying.
This would be like meeting, that's the minimum standards.
Yeah.
You have to have something to go off of.
Yeah,
But
I
this
know.
will keep the council from, say somebody next to you wanted to build one 100 feet away, but we're okay with it, but you're not.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So we could approve that. This puts limits on the council as to what they can approve and not approve. It
So
has
at
to
least a
be-
minimum of 500 feet is what
Well,
we're
and
indicating.
we're not, if you do, if we were to take yours, for example, sir, and someone come in front of the committee, then they would say we're singling an individual out, that's what we got, I think, got accused of earlier, singling an individual out, and say, oh, no, just because you're doing it, we're gonna make it X, Y, Z or something, just so you don't need it. So,
But we see your point. Mr. Wakeman, please.
Instead of limiting it to a number of feet, wouldn't it be easier just to say they cannot be located on a property that contains less than 5 acres or 6 acres or 10 acres? And just that eliminates all of
Do
that.
I want to do acres or feet?
I would rather do the acres.
acres would probably work a lot better.
Steve, this language at the end to say, what do you suggest, Mr. Wakeman? You have
10 acres.
10 acres?
Can we do a combination?
What if you own 10
And not
acres next
come
to
within
my house
500
and you
foot
want to
of
put
a-
your town right
Uh,
next to my
You mean if you
house?
put it up against the
10
fence?
acres and
Oh,
or
you're
500
10 acres,
feet?
you got it up by my fence.
Well, if you
500
do
feet
it
of
in,
boundary.
Well, no, then you do a specification on acreage if you do that.
I have a question on that.
Right, listen what she's gonna say.
If Mike wants to build, have a dog pound, and he
10
wants to
acres.
put it, he owns 10 acres next to me.
And here's her house on the side
And
of the
he
fence.
wants to put his pound in there. Well, he can put that right up next to my house if he wants to, if there's not a footage.
If your house is
We
on the
put 10
property
acres,
line.
and also not to be within 500 foot.
Exactly, that's what I was saying.
Boundary.
Let's do that. Let's do that. 10 acres and 500 feet.
Well, and then it also has in here that they have to maintain it in a clean and sanitary manner. You're gonna have your noise and everything else, so, you know.
That would be a constant
So
patrol.
500
No,
feet.
I like
10
her
acres and
500
500
feet
feet.
and the 10 acres.
Where do you want the 10 acres in there?
You can, just however you want to prose that. I mean,
Minimum of 10 acres, and also not to come within 500 feet of a
Be located,
Boundary,
be
not-
located
boundary
on less
property.
than not,
pardon me?
be located on not less than 10 acres and
And not
500
closer
feet.
than 500 feet
Yes, that sounds
to the
good.
property line.
That sounds good.
That's gonna be a great deterrent to somebody coming in to do something.
With a puppy mill,
Yeah, with any kind of deal like that.
animal.
animal growth.
I mean, a nice vet, that might be a little different situation, but I guarantee you Lake Palestine,
I know, I know.
veterinary clinic up there's got 10 acres that they're on, so.
So this, Phil, this is basically for an animal containment center like a dog pound or a puppy mill, which is a commercial, animal.
Most vets have kennels that they board dogs in,
Yeah,
and that becomes an animal containment center.
yeah, it sure is. But what are you saying? You're saying that,
I'm saying this would be good, what you're doing.
okay.
Okay, let's keep moving, folks. All right, we're on that page still. Is there anything below that comment section we just went through? Just go to the next page. All right, we're on, the title of this page is Notice of Refusal or Revocation. 4047.
I have a question on 4070. Oh.
40 what?
40, that's the top of the page. Now 4070 is general authority, impoundment.
Okay, I have two things that Ray Gill had asked me about. and I believe someone else. 4070A, the animal control officer or a designated representative may order impoundment of an animal, remove in the city pound. This way, it removes the burden of providing any kind of city pound. On that first line, remove in the city pound.
Okay, what, 4070A?
4070A,
He said take out the word.
4070.
in the city pound. This
In
way
the
the city
city
won't be
pound. Just
responsible
remove
for
that.
animal pound.
Okay.
So if you contract with Jackie Peck and she has her own
Yes,
animal
right.
facility, she'll be in charge of taking control of the animal. She'll be also in charge of assessing fees for the keeping it per day and any kind of work that she has to do.
So this is like a designated representative?
Well, the
constitute
city
a
council will
rep.
hire will hire a person to manage the animals.
Right.
In the interim, like Jackie's doing right now. She'll manage what happens to the animals. It's got to be destroyed. If it has to be housed, how the owner gets it or something like that. And
Is
then
number one of this section?
Number one will also be taken out.
Thank you.
If found to be running at large within the city.
My mother was wanting that taken.
Yeah.
Under 4070.
4070 A1.
A1.
Okay,
That's out.
thank you.
All right, anything else on that page?
What about that number
C?
That's for horses and cows because the city's not really set up for strays.
Yeah, it's a stray.
The sheriff's department contracts with different farmers and ranchers to come and pick up the animals.
Next page. I didn't have any writing on this. Anybody, do you have something there?
Yes.
Please bring it up.
4072 A, fees imposed, and this has to do with the collection again.
Okay.
The following fees will be charged by and collected for the impoundment facility, which will be,
Whoever all amount coming in from the motel sales tax or occupancy tax that we get. But for the most part, the city thrives on just that limited resource base. That is pretty well just barely keeping up or a little bit extra each month to pay our employees and et cetera that we have. Of course, there's some ticketing issues, but that's not something that's supposed to be created for a vehicle of income.
Right.
So with that said, it's going to be basically the capability of the city to finance something like that is going to be very strained. And the reliability of having something go wet that would take our income source is probably a very real threat. We're seeing some of it happening already. So with that said, no, sir, we don't have anything planned in the near future.
I mean, I just was curious about that.
Yes.
Okay.
And they say, well, we don't like this part, like Ray bringing up the fireworks and coming into your home, that's a no-no. I can tell you that right now, I've already, that's gotta be axed. There's no right for anybody to come in your house with fireworks. My grandkids shoot fireworks after the first year, and if it's illegal, I didn't know it.
Now, that's the last one I had. Mr. Riley, thank you, sir. And if you ever feel like you need to do something just for spare time, you make a great enforcement officer.
Yeah. And we're looking for one.
Careful what you volunteer for.
Keep your attitude.
Be careful what you say.
Dwight, we kind of glossed you over a little bit. If you wish to make any further comments from your efforts there, we're willing to listen.
Actually, I just have a question.
Yes, sir.
First time I've been to one of these here.
And most of that would constitute your nuisance animals, and she picks them up, and the city gives her X number of dollars, I don't know, there's a certain rate, and then she houses the animal and adopts him out. And it's about the most humane thing that I've ever seen, and it's working good. But just like this gentleman here said, we've got to start putting the ordinances into effect that will protect us in your case, the near future, and in the future. And what we're doing tonight is we want the citizens' input to look at this. We don't want to make a decision that's just outrageous if there's enough people.
I read it. That's why I was asking if there was an ordinance now.
No, there's nothing now. We have nothing to bind us to any.
So I have no right to go over to my neighbor
As big as you are.
and complain with him. Yeah, them pit bulls are bigger and meaner.
Little living.
But I have no right to go over to his place now and put in a complaint to him and
Not
tell
yet.
him to come over and clean that mess up.
Not yet.
Not yet, but it's getting close.
Is there a county thing that would come in and out?
There's no enforcement. They're not going to come out here to enforce it.
The simple operation we have now, and I've said this before, we have a lady by the name of Jackie Peck, it actually retrieves animals that are like puppies or dropped off animals or.
Since Broadway's been into the city, I know that's still kind of holding them. But my question
No,
is.
they're actually a part of our.
It is actually already done?
Yes, sir, it is. Yes.
Okay, is there any plans in the future, I'm a permanent resident here, 7.5 years right now, I think.
Yes, sir.
Of doing sewer systems, or any of this is gonna happen in my lifetime?
That was a touchy subject several years ago. Let me just say this.
Or any improvements in general?
The city's financial capabilities are going to be a dictate as to what we can and cannot do. And if you're aware of some of the activity that's going on what actually promotes this city is our sales tax revenue that we have from the 155 corridor. That alone is pretty much all we have to rely upon. We got some small